Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Hello, hello, hello. I have a question for you. Have you ever felt completely lost? You know, seeking purposeful direction that could and should propel your mission within your divine journey to that next level, but still it hasn't happened. Well, my name is Lauren Michaels Harris, and I'm the founder of P3, the Journey Series. People come to me because they're wounded. Many are scared, and even there are those who are bruised simply because they feel that they are increasingly, for whatever reason, losing their ability to dream. Now, this P3 program is not for a person who's just looking to start a business, no, but rather for those of you out there who have been on your journey and you've been navigating within your divine purpose, but you still desire to elevate to that level that you have not reached yet. If this is appealing, if this describes you, then I want to have a chat with you. I want to hear your story. So use the link below to get registered for your free seat at P3, the Journey Series. And let's get started, one story at a time. I'll see you inside. Click the link. On July 4th, 1962, I found myself in the lost and found of mankind. Just because something finds its way to the lost and found doesn't mean that it wants to be there. Just because something finds its way to the lost and found doesn't mean that the person who lost it doesn't care for that lost item.
You are writing moments that people will learn from, grow from, and heal through for thousands of years. Together, we are co-authoring a unique moment in time. That DNA, those fingerprints, they're going to be gone. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But it is your story that they will tell for thousands of years. But only if you leave it. Things that do not serve you must go. The longer you wait, the more time you give them to trick you into serving them. 22 homes in foster care, everything I wore as a scar, as a shame, things that started like Velcro on my spirit. After just a few months, then years, then decades, I had believed myself into believing that they were indelible tattoos. Sometimes we have to be broken down to appreciate the view once we start getting up. I want you to leave this place and know that you have been changed. Why? How do I know it's true? Because each of you has just changed me.
my state of mind. But you walk right past me, pretending like you don't see what's yours for the taking tonight.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, I didn't turn on the frequency music. Y'all probably know why. That remodel. Boy, I'm sure I did, but I'm going to bring it up again. Let me get this going. I got to have my frequency music. Matter of fact, see, we know where nothing is right now. Oh, wait. Okay, hold on, y'all. I got a great guest for you today. If you know anyone who has ever had or is currently or might be headed that way, dealing with, how about butterflies today? Because I'm headed to it's a sign. I'm headed to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Okay, hold on. Jackson Hole, Wyoming on Thursday through Monday. Remember last year I went and I was looking for my hat. And my husband Brian and I, we marched in the Jackson Hole 4th of July parade, which is my birthday. I'll be 63 and whenever it comes up. I try not to pay too much attention to that, if you know why. And anyway, the Grand Butterfly Gathering is why I go. I'm headed up by the Trueness Project. The Guinness Book of World Records will be there. Also, the New York Times Magazine will be there with a film crew this year. Not bad for M. Teresa Lawrence's second time out with this flagship event, the Grand Butterfly Gathering, where she is creating metamorphoses in different places all around the globe, taking things from great, because souls reside there, but she's putting things inside of their space to take everything that is great to great her. And so she's been coaching with me for about 3 years, and I absolutely adore this woman. More to come on that as we get closer. I leave Thursday afternoon. I'll be there all the way through Monday, coming home on Tuesday. So please pray for traveling mercies there. Here is my today's metabolic balance breakfast. Got some of everything on here: some goat cheese, some mango, some avocado, a rye crisp, an apple, and some fresh cucumber. There it is. Yes, you guys remember just a few short months ago, I was almost 200 pounds. Give me a break, because I sure need one. Blessings, Nell Carter. And metabolic balance has helped me to find myself. So if you want to know more about that, you know what to do. Hit your boy up. So what else? That's it. That's the announcements. So what was I alluding to when I told you that today's guest is going to talk to us about drinking our way to sober? Now, sounds better than any AA meeting I ever heard of. So, that's the bell of purpose. I ring it throughout the broadcast on purpose and with purpose. Why? Because, well, you guessed it. Just like that bell has a ring to it, so does the truth. And today's topic and today's guest is bringing a lot of truth. And here's the exciting part. When she explained to me how this works, it's scientifically based, and she has lived it, is living it. I was like, how did we not know about this? How indeed. It's not like traditional. I'm sorry, if you don't want to be talked about, don't do it. If Western medicine, my good friend Sanjeev Chopra, here's a shameless plug, Deepak Chopra's brother, we're going on tour in the fall, and he is the liver specialist, the head of the department at Harvard Medical School. And he calls it, he says, you've heard this, I'm sure. We don't have a healthcare program, or we have a sick care system here in the United States. And today's guest is going to help prove that, because she has got something. It's going to change the lives of a lot of people. This book, Drink Your Way to Sober. So that, wait a minute, does that mean if I'm drunk? No, I couldn't read if I was drunk, because I say 3 or 4 words at a time, and they wouldn't be even probably on the page. So we're going to get her in here. Katie Herzog is here. She resides in the Washington area, and you're just going to love this woman. And I'm going to get her in here. Now, you guys remember, she has never been here before, so she's a first timer. We're going to put some hearts on the screen, right, to welcome her in. It's what we do as she comes down the hallway. I hear her now. And, looks like she brought a cake with her. My kind of gal. Katie.
Hello.
How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Now, I'm gonna just tell you something right up, not to get personal at all, but that room is just way too busy. Something more subtle, like
Yes.
what I have. It's so nice to see your smiling face.
Yes, you as well. I need more neon in my studio.
Ah, I see. So listen, tell the world exactly where you're at and a little bit about yourself. I'm not into reading bios too much. I just like people to just speak from the heart. And then if you could add one thing you woke up with this morning as something on your spirit. What's on your heart today that's important you want to share with the world?
All right. So I live outside of Seattle. I'm in Washington State. So I'm blessed to be in the small corner of the US that is not now experiencing a heat wave.
Oh, like here?
Yeah. It'll be 75 degrees and cloudy today. So happy to be here. So I'm a journalist. I do most of my work on a podcast that I host. It's called Blocked and Reported. The podcast is about sort of culture, media, internet controversies. But I also I'm a writer. Most of my career has been in writing, and so I wrote a book, which I'm here to talk about today. But yes, I am both a writer and a podcaster at this point. And today, what did I wake up with today? Today, this is an early day for me. I woke up at 5:30 in order to do this. So I woke up. Yes, but I was blessed because I woke up with a wet dog's nose hitting my face. So my golden doodle decided to wake me up right before my alarm went off by rubbing his wet nose on my face.
You have a golden doodle.
I do. Yeah, his name is Moose. He's extremely precious. Very handsome dog. And so that was my blessing for the morning. Is I woke up right before my alarm went off with a wet nose in my face.
See, he knew.
Yeah, he knew.
That Lucy and Ethel. That's mine. Those are mine. Our little fur babies.
Nice.
That's exciting. So, can we talk a little bit before we get to the book about your podcast? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the podcast is called Blocked and Reported. It's about 5 years old. I started it. I was working as a reporter at a newspaper in Seattle called The Stranger and Alt Weekly. And then
I still make those things?
No, not really.
I know. It's sad.
Yeah. So it was maybe the last Alt Weekly. It's sort of still alive now in a much sort of truncated form. I got laid off during COVID. I was one of the first victims of the great layoff in 2020. So I got laid off in I think March 2020, and I started this show right after that with a fellow journalist in New York. His name's Jesse Single, and so we've been doing this for 5 years now.
Wow. Was that the intention, or do you think, hey, well, what are we going to do with ourselves? Let's just do something this will be over in a few weeks and we'll be back to normal. Remember that?
Yes. Yeah. A few weeks to flatten the curve.
Yes. And I want to talk about that because when the pre-interview, I found it very interesting that COVID actually led you to what led you to the book.
Yes.
I don't want to spoiler. And a lot of us did some weird things. I remember, just to name a couple, first of all, I had 3 different outfits in disguise. As you say, I'm into hats.
I like the hat.
And different sunglasses. Shameless plug, my line. Nice. And outfits in my car. And I'd go to the grocery store every morning before they opened, and people were in the parking lot already. I think they slept there. And lining up to get toilet paper. Yeah. That, and then the other cray thing my husband and I did, and we laugh about it now, but we were desperate. We didn't know, but we saw something online about, and you said internet controversy. Well, there were some Jamaican people who said, take citrus, boil it, and put a thing. Remember that? And we were in the kitchen taking turns. Okay, get under. Don't let it out. Okay, I'm getting ready. Can I come out? Yeah, no.
Did it work?
Well,
you're still here.
Excuse me as I cough.
Yeah.
That's because all the dust in here, and I have asthma.
Oh.
And we're just getting over the smoke here in Chicago from Canada, from those fires. Yes. So, yeah, we did a lot of strange things. And a lot of people went places that they didn't even know existed within their neighborhoods. Okay. And that's a lead into what you experienced, which, again, you guys, I say, I don't believe there are any mistakes in this universe. It's just what they do to keep our shit interesting. Yeah. So, is there something happened to you that brought us here today? Talk about that. If you can.
Yeah. So I spent COVID drinking. I think probably a lot of
water.
No, I did not. I don't think I drank any water. I think for the first 2 years, no water. A strict no water diet. It was mostly cheap beer. So I spent COVID after I was laid off from my job. I started this podcast, but the podcast didn't take that much time. So mostly what I did was drink. Nobody would recommend this as a way to spend all of your time, but this is what I did. And I had a long history of struggling with alcohol abuse. I started drinking when I was in middle school. Drank a lot I was young. I was a early developer in that sense. I don't think this was that weird in the 90s though. This was
So can we just ask real quick? So you said in middle school. So a lot of people went, But
yeah.
I remember Sonny Vine Cleveland was here a few weeks ago, and he had his first felony at 9. And a lot of people, children, and I came out of the foster care system, so I've pretty much seen an example of everything. And would you say this is a generational thing? Were you the first one to kick it off? How did that come about?
I think it was generational in the sense that we had a lot of freedom. So I'm in my early 40s, and so I was. Oh, thank you. So I was not in the, I think kids today, and I don't have children, but I think kids today have a lot more oversight. They have trackers on them. They've got cell phones. Parents know where they are at all time. It wasn't like that in the 90s. Thank God, honestly.
Right.
And so we had a lot more freedom. I'm sure that you experienced the same thing, especially coming out of the foster care system.
Well, and back when I was the age you referred to, back in Walnut Grove, when I was playing with Laura Ingalls Wilder and Nellie Olson and all of those people.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just down at the creek.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was very much my life. I was very much an outdoor kid. I grew up in rural North Carolina, and we didn't have a lot to do. We didn't have a local mall to hang out, which is what people, did in the 90s. But we did have when I was in 6th grade, we got a Walmart. So that was kind of the big thing to do, was go to the Walmart.
So like going to the big city, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. You had to go to the next town over to go to the Walmart. So I grew up in a really boring town. And what we did was drink and smoke pot. And, it wasn't like when I was 12, it wasn't a regular thing. It was sort of something that you would do at a party where someone's parents weren't looking. Right. But then in high school, it was much more regular. We would go to parties in someone's farmer's fields, drink by the silo, sit on hay bales and drink by the silo. Wow. And that was very normal. It was extremely normal.
Sure, that's not a scene out of Footloose.
Yeah, Footloose or Dazed and Confused. There was dancing, so I guess not Footloose. It was legal. Wow. And then in college, kind of the same thing. I drink.
What college is for.
That's what college is for, and maybe less so today. I think data shows that college students today are drinking and having sex, probably related, less than my generation did. But that's what I did in college. I drank really heavily, and there was that sort of sense of freedom because I didn't have a curfew for the first time. I didn't have anybody making sure I was where I was supposed to be when I was supposed to be. And I drank a lot. And so did my friends. And the difference between me and most of my friends is that as we got out of college and moved on to different lives and got jobs and relationships and things like that, mostly they didn't necessarily quit, but they moderated. And most people do. This is very common. It's something that you wouldn't hear about if you went to rehab or most AA meetings, but it's called natural recovery. And this is what most people do. Most people who binge drink during a certain part of their life, they naturally age out of that. But I never did. And then
some people refer to as like, I grew out of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because other things take the place. You get more responsible. You get more responsibilities. Boom, boom, boom.
So you get tired of having a hangover, and so you stop doing the thing that gives you a hangover.
Well, let's go there, because a journalist, that's when, that if I was sitting in an airport at a bar, oops, sorry. Bad reference.
Oh no, I've spent many layovers in bars myself.
Yes, I mean, what else is there to do, right? I actually go early sometimes just for there. It's the only place where you can be at 7:00 in the morning and have a Bloody Mary, and no one's gonna go.
Yeah, an airport Bloody Mary is a beautiful drink. Yeah.
So, journalist is like saying when you sit next, like I was on a guy sat next to me a few weeks ago on a flight, and he's a skydiving instructor. Wow. I'm like, what? It's like, you meet people and you don't really sit next to journalists a lot. Well, I'm a journalist, really? Nobody throws that around, just like, because I, journal in my dear diary.
Right.
No, journalists. With that, we think we see respectability. They got to be on it. In the newsroom, deadlines.
Yeah.
A lot of things that are not bendable.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
How did you navigate? Well, wait a minute, but you drank a little, so it must not have been that out of hand.
It was, I managed to be, so it took me a long time to get into journalism. So I didn't get into journalism until I was 30. Basically, I spent most of my 20s on a bar stool. I worked part-time jobs, and when I worked at all, and this was still, rent was still cheap then, so I could work part-time and still pay my rent, which was usually a few $100 a month. I don't know that there's many places in the country left now.
Oh yeah, there's a box right at the corner of my street where I think the lady pays $600 or $700 a month for it.
Exactly. But it wasn't, it wasn't like this 20 years ago.
Right.
So I was blessed. I grew up, I came of age at a time when you could still be a drunk and pay your rent.
It was fashionable.
Yes, and that's what most of my friends did. And so I spent my 20s really kind of screwing around. I was a party girl, and I don't remember those. I think from what I hear, those years were very fun. I don't remember them very well. And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, early 30s that I really started to get it together professionally. So when I was 30 years old, I got an unpaid internship in public radio. And then that got me into the NPR into the NPR
Moment
orbit.
Of silence for public radio, real quick.
Seriously,
please.
On its last legs at this point.
I hope not. No, we rebuke that.
No, it will exist. It just will take more money from our pockets and less from the government.
Doesn't that scare you?
Yeah, I find it upsetting.
But go on. Oh, okay. So let me ask you this one, Katie.
Yeah.
So many people, and then I guess on the same token, I could say, not enough people learn how to navigate. In other words, hide something that could be seen by other people or judged by other people as, did you smell liquor on her? Did you see her last night where's Katie? At the bar, where else? That kind of thing. Did you have to take it underground, or were you as transparent then as you are today?
No, this was my drinking was a complete secret, including from the people that I am closest to. So, yeah. So I basically spent 10 years working on my career, working my way up through journalism, getting jobs, getting laid off from those jobs because it's journalism and layoffs are just a part of the process, then getting another job. And I wasn't drinking heavily the night before deadline. I got into a serious relationship. I'm now married. My wife is a very moderate drinker.
Yay!
Yeah.
Happy Pride Month.
Yeah. Almost. So we got a couple days left.
I know.
So my wife is a very moderate drinker, and I didn't drink really around her. But my wife is a nurse, and so during COVID, she was very busy.
Frontline.
Right. And we live an hour ferry ride from where she works in Seattle. So her schedule is very prescribed.
Thank you for the gay reference.
Yeah.
Okay.
and she's not gonna just like randomly show up at home one day because there's a ferry between the work and home. So I knew where she was going to be. And so I spent during COVID, after I got laid off from my job, I basically dove into full-time day drinking. And I did this completely in secret. She didn't know about it. The
Even
only
when
person
she came home, she didn't know?
No, she did not know.
Why do I see you drinking can? You said cheap beer, so of course I see a can.
Yeah.
So what did you
it's a can.
crack them and turn it into some artwork or something?
Yeah, I should have. No, I hid it at the bottom of the recycling bin. I'm in charge of garbage in my house. So I would go down to the the corner store. So the only person who really knew what I was doing was the woman who runs the 7-Eleven. Yeah. And now, of course, this is something you'll hear. This is very typical among alcoholics. Is I would go to different stores because I didn't want the judgment of these people I didn't know. I still didn't want them to. Exactly. So I would go sort of rotate, right? This is very, very common pattern of behavior, and I drank in secret. And this is one of these things that I think for a lot of problem drinkers, there are these lines that you tell yourself that you'll never cross: drunk driving. Or drinking during the day, drinking alone. And then eventually you cross the line. And for me, that line was drinking in secret. And so I
Wow.
crossed that line, and I continued to cross it basically every day while my wife was at work. And then during the week when she was at home, I wasn't drinking. So I lived this very bifurcated secret life. Not a fun secret life either. There's no like secret family or like a lover. It was just like cheap booze.
I want to ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, choked on a piece of apple. They're here.
Mm.
I submitted, one of my coaching clients has a live stream television show. And, well, I remember it. Yesterday, I saw a post that said, next week's show is, what would Lulu do? Submit your questions, this, any other. And my question was this, how interesting. I said, what do you say? What do you, in your experiences, what do you think happens when a person holds a secret, keeps a secret from their partner, their everything, their husband, their wife, their significant other? Have you ever known it to work out well?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you, did it ever, when it came above ground, how did it affect your relationship as far as, you've been keeping this from me all along? Or how did that play out?
It was pretty shocking. So I told my wife after a year after I got sober, and I wanted to know that it stuck, that it would,
So that you wouldn't be afraid that, I get that.
Yeah, I wanted to be sure that I wasn't gonna relapse, and that I wanted to tell her I had a problem and I solved the problem and I came out the other side. And she was fine. And I know this is like, I married an exceptional person, and the fact that she's a nurse might have something
What's
to
her
do with
first name?
Her name's Jana.
I hope everybody finds their Jana.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah.
And I know what you're saying. Go on.
Yeah, she's a caretaker. And I got incredibly lucky. I honestly do not deserve this woman, but I somehow managed to convince her to marry me. And we got the dog, so we're real locked in at this point. And she was so supportive, and so she wasn't mad at me. She was sad for me. She was sad that I had gone through this thing,
and alone,
it wasn't, yeah, and I'd gone through it alone, and it wasn't as though I felt like if I tell her this truth, she's gonna leave me. I never felt that way.
Okay.
I was just
ashamed. A lot of
ashamed.
people worry about that.
Yes, I was never worried about that. I was just ashamed. There's a lot of shame around drinking, around problem drinking, and there's even more shame around lying.
Or should be.
There's it was deeply shameful.
Right. I don't think we logically or whatever choose, well, I just want to become, an alcoholic or addicted to a drug. Right. It's something else usually. And that leads to my next question. What do you think you were looking for or hiding from? Because it can be one, both, the other. What was it for you, Katie?
So this might be controversial, but I don't think there was anything. And I think I think the idea that every problem drinker or addict has something inside them that they're trying to hide or cover up. I think that's wrong. And that's true for a lot of people, but from my experience, so there's a few risk factors that can lead to alcohol use disorder. One of those is genetics. So I'm Irish Catholic. You can probably tell that from looking at me. I come from a long history of problem drinkers, not my immediate family. My parents drink, but they drink fairly moderately. But I come from a long history of drunks. It's in my genetic makeup. I have a big family. There's a lot of problem drinkers in my family.
Was that difficult for you to use that word, drunks?
No, I have no problem with that word.
No.
I use alcoholic, I use alcohol use disorder, I use drunk, I use lush, I use whatever. It's descriptive. I'm a writer. I use these terms. I use these terms because people understand what they mean. And alcohol use disorder is a wide spectrum. The term alcoholism has gone out of fashion among clinicians. Like no doctor is going to call you that.
I've never heard, I promise you. Mm-hmm. And I'm asking myself, where the world have you been? Alcohol use disorder. I said, what's that? Right. Yeah. I mean, I kind of figured it out, but I was like, did she just make this up?
No, this is what doctors say.
Alcohol. I like that better.
Yeah. It's helpful because So it's a description, or it's a spectrum, right? So there's a wide spectrum between like the wine mom who is having too much on a Thursday and waking up with a hangover, but still taking the kids to school and going to work on a Friday, and the guy who's on the list for a liver transplant. It's such a wide spectrum.
It is.
Yes, and so that's why the term alcohol use disorder is a little bit more accurate than terms like alcoholism. And the term alcoholism has a lot of stigma. Right. So pretty much the only people who use the term alcoholism are people within the AA community, the recovery community. It's really gone out of fashion. I like it. I think it's descriptive. People know what it means, but there is some controversy over the term, some debate over what should be used and what shouldn't.
So I'm still thinking about, wow, there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much. And we think, that's the thing about that alcoholism, we think that it's what we know it to be or think we know has always been when you saw it in a movie that they shot in the 50s.
Right.
60s, you think it's just stayed the same.
It's Marlon Brando.
Yeah. And it's not that way anymore. What I really find attractive about using the term alcohol disorder, alcohol use disorder, is that it's more peaceful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems like you can do something about it.
Yeah.
So, let me
finish answering your question before because this is important. So there are a few risk factors for developing alcohol use disorder. Some of them are things like trauma, things like that, early trauma. You probably have that risk factor. You come from the foster care system. I'm making some assumptions about you, but it sounds like it's true. I don't come from that. I come from a very stable sort of middle class background. My parents were college professors, sort of a pretty idyllic 90s life.
Yes.
Except for the town I grew up in was extremely boring. But a lot of time by the creek, Yeah.
A
lot of time outside. So I don't have the trauma in my background, but I do have these genetic risk factors. And there's two other things that I think led me to developing my addiction, which was repeated exposure and exposure from a young age. So I could have had those same risk factors, a genetic predisposition, or even trauma. But if I had never started drinking in the first place, I never would have developed an addiction, right? So I started young, as I told you. I started drinking in middle school, and I had repeated exposure. So I think that's why I developed this addiction, what became a real full-blown addiction later in life, my genetics and my exposure and the age at which I started. So for me, I completely understand why people assume that there is some hole that people are trying to fill with their drinking or their drug use. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
And I think later in life,
it is. It's a self-medication.
Yes.
In many cases, it is,
yes.
but not exclusively.
Not exclusively. And I think later in life, after you've developed the problem, the alcohol or the drug can be a way of hiding yourself from the problem itself. You treat it as the solution to the problem rather than the cause of the problem, right? You try to drink your way through it. You realize that you've got a drinking problem, and so what do? You drink more, because that's a scary thing to deal with, right? Yeah. So I think that was the fundamental problem, was that I had developed an addiction to alcohol. It wasn't because I had a lot of trauma in my past, or I was trying to hide something. I had just very simply developed a physical and mental addiction to a very highly addictive substance.
So I bet you can. Will you take us back to that moment? I'm not going to say that day. I want to say that moment, because it might have been night. When you said, wait a minute, I need to change this, because choice drives everything. So what was it? Was it one thing? Was it a combination? Were you just sick and tired of being sick and tired? Were you tired of the darkness and the secretiveness? What was it that got the process going, which led us to what you've done today?
So the first moment came many years ago. It did not come during COVID. It came in, I think, 2007. And I was in my early mid-20s, and I was going through my first real serious breakup. And the reason for that breakup was because of my drinking. And and I had done some things that
do you think that had anything to do with the secret this time, because of what had happened there? I don't want that to happen again.
Probably. I mean, I had I've always been very good at hiding my flaws. Not that good, some would argue, but I've always been I wouldn't say I'm secretive. I'm fairly open. I'm talking to you about this right now, but I was very good at hiding this one thing. So when I was 24, I had this realization. I had my first come to Jesus moments, sort of staring me straight in the face. My girlfriend at the time kicked me out of the house. I was sitting on a curb it was like a bad rom-com, right? I'm like sitting on the curb with all of my stuff in the yard. And that was my first come to Jesus moment. And over the years, so I started going to AA then. I had this realization, my life is falling apart because of alcohol. And I sort of looked for other ways to explain it away. I went to a psychiatrist and I tried to get diagnosed with bipolar disorder because I thought, if I'm bipolar, maybe I won't have to quit drinking, because that's how important drinking was to my life. Wow. The idea of admitting that I had a drinking problem, once you admit it, then you have to quit, right? That's what I thought was there's one path out of alcoholism, and it is AA. It is rehab, AA, and never drinking again. And that was a terrifying thought to me. I think it is to most drinkers because my life revolved around alcohol. I was a drinker. It was what I did. So I had that moment in 2007. It took 15 years for me to actually quit. And over those years, I quit many times. I've attended many AA meetings. I did various different other modes of recovery, smart recovery, moderation management. I went to therapy. I went to group therapy. I did everything short of rehab. I did fast. I did yoga. I did cleanses. I tried everything, and nothing worked long term. I would have periods of sobriety, but nothing worked long term. And the reason I think is because what none of those treatments ever did was address the fundamental problem, which was that I wanted to keep drinking. It didn't matter how many AA meetings I went to, I still wanted to drink. And so I would go to AA and I would sit there and hear people talk about drinking for an hour. And all I wanted after that was to drink. So I would go to the bar afterwards. I'm a weak-willed person. I have very little willpower. And I was never able to overcome that desire, the cravings. Yes.
Desire is so powerful.
Yes.
I mean, even for biblically based, we're promised the desires of our hearts.
Yes.
The heart's desires. So yeah, that is a strong motivator.
Yes.
Strong motivator. So I love how you set this up because now it takes us to the results of what worked for you.
Right.
And there it is. Right there, sitting in between us. Tell us about this book. Drink Your Way to Sober.
Okay, so I started basically giving up on any pretense of sobriety in 2020 during COVID because in the preceding years, I was working, I got married, I had a house and a dog, I had a garden, and I managed to keep my drinking in check. I would go through periods of sobriety, and then every once in a while I would go out and binge drink and feel terrible for it the next few days. But for the most part, I was managing to keep my life together. Mm-hmm. And then COVID happened, and all of a sudden the guardrails were off. So after about 2 years into this secret, day drinking habit, because I wasn't drinking at night when my wife was home, I was doing it during the day. In the time I would get earlier and earlier during the day, and just having miserable nights. She would come home, I would be loaded. She wouldn't know because I was good at hiding it. I could have fooled a breathalyzer test by that point.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it wasn't like I was drinking, vodka or tequila. I was drinking a lot of cheap beer. So I was drinking a lot of alcohol over the course of the day. But I was doing it in this sort of watery, Pabst Blue Ribbon type of alcohol. So
when you said cheap beer the first time, I almost said Pabst Blue Ribbon when I did the can.
Yeah.
But I thought, no, come on now.
Yeah. I loved PBR. I don't know how I probably drank more PBR than water in my lifetime.
What do you think? What do you say to what? Believe in yourself, Robert. Hi, Robert Booker from Canada. How are you? He says a critical
distinction. That moment, you no longer wanted to drink.
Okay, so that came later. I can explain how that came about. Okay, so about 2 years into my day drinking habit, I knew that something had to change, and I did a few things. So I started going to AA meetings on Zoom. That didn't do anything for me. And this COVID was shut down. If there had been AA meetings open, and I live as I mentioned, I live in Washington State. I live outside Seattle, so Seattle was shut down more than most places. This wasn't Florida, right? It was the AA meetings were actually canceled. I would have gone in person if I could have, but they were actually canceled. And so, but I was doing the meetings online. I was kind of half-heartedly doing what I could. I called Hazelden, Betty Ford, and I asked them how much it would how would I go about going to rehab? How much was that going to cost me? A lot. It was going to cost me a lot. And they advised that I go to Minnesota for a month. And then I do 90 patients of intensive outpatient rehab, none of which was possible. I couldn't afford it.
How much were they saying it would cost?
I believe it was $28,000.
Oh, is that all?
That's not all. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was that, and then 90 days of outpatient rehab in a place that was 90 minutes in a ferry ride from my house, right? So incredibly disruptive to my life. I also had this podcast going. I was starting to make money on the podcast. I couldn't just stop my life and address this problem. I couldn't and also I would have had to tell my wife. I would have had to come clean, tell everybody, and I didn't want to do that. So a few years before, I had read an article in The Atlantic by a woman named Gabrielle Glasser. And the article was called The Irrationality of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was about AA and about sort of the statistics about the efficacy rates of AA. But more importantly for me, it was about this drug that had been tested in Finland called naltrexone. And this drug... And this particular, so it's an opioid blocker, and this particular American researcher had moved to Finland in the 1970s. I'm forgetting that right now. And he had developed this protocol, a way of using this drug to extinguish the desire for alcohol. And critically, what was different about this drug and the way that this particular guy, his name is John David Sinclair, the way that John David Sinclair developed this protocol, you didn't have to quit drinking, right? So there are a few drugs that are FDA approved for treating alcohol use disorder, but typically the recommendation from doctors is to take the drug and not drink on it. That wasn't going to help me because I still wanted to keep drinking, right? So there's a drug called Antabuse. Antabuse has been FDA approved for decades, since I believe the 1950s. This is the first drug developed and approved by the FDA to treat alcohol use disorder. And it works based on basically aversion therapy. So if you take this drug and you drink even the slightest amount of alcohol, even mouthwash could do this, or eating foods with alcohol, you will get violently ill. And so it keeps people from drinking. I didn't want that because that
also keeps them from taking it.
Yes, that's the problem. You have compliance issues, right? You got to take the pill every day. If you stop taking the pill, once the drug is out of your system, you can continue to drink. And I know people who've taken Antabuse. For some people, it works really well. For some people, it doesn't. Right. But, over the years, I had gone to many doctors and psychiatrists and clinicians about my drinking problem. And the advice I was always given was go to AA. Here's a pamphlet for AA. Find your local AA meeting and go to AA. I had never been told there are drugs that could potentially help you with your problem. I had never been told this.
Is that just get out of my, quit bugging me, kid. Go to AA.
The reason for this, I think, is because this is changing. But until very recently, the entire training that most doctors, most family physicians, ER doctors, even psychiatrists would have gotten, unless they were specializing in addiction, that most clinicians would have gotten in medical school and their residencies. So at least 8 years of education and training, their entire training on alcohol use disorder was to attend one AA meeting, if that. And we're talking about a drug that kills 175,000 Americans every year, and which wreaks havoc we all know the damage that alcohol does. We all do, right? the cost to the legal system, the cost to productivity, the cost to families. People end up in the foster care system because of this. It destroys families, it destroys lives. And yet, until very recently, all doctors were trained was go to an AA meeting. That's how people get sober. So I think that's a huge part of it, is that there's a real ignorance on the part of the medical profession about the best ways to treat this drug. That is changing. So today's physicians, people who are being trained today, are much more likely to learn about drugs, basically medications to address alcohol use disorder, at least within their psych rotation. There probably still isn't enough training, but most medical students today will learn about drugs like naltrexone, which is what I ended up taking.
So people who are loyal followers of the AA Big Book mindset and whatnot, and get their chips and all that goes with it, does this drug ever come up in conversation at those meetings?
It depends. So AA meetings are very different based on where you are, what the community is like. And in some AA communities, there's a real stigma about taking medication, basically. I've talked to people who left AA because their sponsors were against them taking their antidepressants. The official stance of AA is don't get between a doctor and patient. So officially, AA takes no stand on anything outside of the program itself, but there can be a lot of resistance and stigma within the program. And the way that I took this particular drug, so there are various different ways to take naltrexone. Some people take it every day. They take it in the morning. It cuts their cravings, and that's it. They just take the drug. There's a shot called Vivitrol. It's the same thing, but it lasts for a month, and they don't drink. But that's not what I did. So what I did was called the Sinclair method, and it was based on this protocol that this researcher in Finland developed, John David Sinclair. And the protocol is you take the drug, you wait between an hour and 90 minutes, which is how long it takes to metabolize in your system, and then you drink on the drug. That's why the book is called Drink Your Way Sober. And it's about, so the drug works by blocking, it's an opioid blocker. It blocks the endorphin response, and that indirectly affects things like serotonin and dopamine and all the sort of feel-good brain chemicals, those neurotransmitters that make drinking alcohol pleasurable. So in effect, you are dulling the pleasure response that people get from alcohol. And it doesn't work for everybody. About 25 people, you have to have a specific allele, which is a chromosomal thing. I don't understand it.
Okay.
You have to have a specific genetic makeup for this to work. And about 25% of people lack that. But for 75% of people, it is theoretically possible that this will work. There are other factors involved. But just in terms of the drug itself, it dulls the pleasure response to alcohol. You continue to do it. You take it every time. This is key. You take it every time that you drink for the rest of your life. If you want to continue to drink, I didn't. I used it to get sober. But if you stop taking the drug, it will stop working. And the other key is you only take it when you are drinking. And this is different than most doctors would prescribe this. So if you went to your doctor today and you said, I want naltrexone, the chances are your doctor would say, okay, here's the drug. Here's a prescription for the drug. Take it every morning and don't drink on the drug, because that's what doctors assume. No doctor is going to be like, I grant you permission to continue drinking. For one thing, there's liability issues. If you do that and you go get in your car and you kill someone and you say, my doctor told me I could continue to drink. There are various reasons, doctors, that the protocol that I'm doing is not the recommended way by most doctors.
Well, and, just to be fully disclosed or, that's not surprising for where we are. There's so much control over, big pharma and legislation and, the people who are benefiting from holding back. And that's how it's always been. That's why monarchies are monarchies. They keep all the good shit for themselves. I do. So access. I want to ask you about access. Two questions that kind of go in together. We got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to get this in. And then I have the Jerry Springer moment question for you right after that. So can you talk a little bit about how different it is here in the United States with this drug, access to it, promoting of it, conversation around it, as compared to, let's say, where the doctor is from, Finland. That, and also here in the United States, is there an issue with people getting this drug covered by their insurance?
Great questions. This drug is very, very easy to get. It is generic. So this was developed by DuPont, but the patent expired years ago. So now this drug is cheap and it is readily available, and it's used for other things. So it's FDA approved for alcohol use disorder and opioid use disorder, but it also is prescribed to people in smaller doses. It's called low dose naltrexone for various autoimmune diseases, things like that. It is very easy to get. It is usually covered by insurance.
It is.
Yes. If you cannot get it through insurance, however, you can get it other ways, because there are companies, like there's one called Or Health. There's also SinclairMethod.org that do telehealth. And this is in part thanks to COVID. Telehealth became, this huge phenomenon. And so there are doctors who are licensed in many different states who you can do a Zoom appointment with. That's right. and can get you that prescription. Some people don't want to use their insurance because they don't want this on their permanent record.
Right.
There are some very legitimate reasons people would want to keep kind of in the closet, for lack of a better term, about their drinking problem. Right. Life insurance. It's very hard to get life insurance if you have a drug like this on your record. So you can go to these, and I'm not advocating that people, lie to their health, their life insurance company. Sure. I'm not saying that. But that is one thing to be aware of, is that it can be harder to get life insurance if you have a drug like naltrexone on your record. Wow. So you can go to these companies, Or Health, SinclairMethod.org, and go directly to a doctor if you don't want to use a doctor who specializes in this. If you don't want to use your health insurance, and you can pay them, I don't know what the fees are, let's say $120 a month. I don't know what it is. And get the medication directly from somebody who specializes in this sort of healthcare.
And just for the sake of inclusion, some people may not know. Can you give us like the most common drugs under the opioid umbrella? Because somebody may not recognize what their grandson or granddaughter or neighbor or whatever. So can you name some of those? Because I think that probably caught some attention.
Yeah, heroin, fentanyl, oxy, all of the
Vicodin, all those kind of things.
Yeah. So one thing to note, so because this drug is an opioid blocker, if you're on a narcotic, and I'm not giving medical advice, I can't legally give medical advice. My advice is talk to your doctor. But if you are on a narcotic, this is not the drug for you, because this drug will impede the narcotic from working. So if you're on a dose of, if you're taking oxy for back pain or something like that, you can't do both of these things.
Got it. And here it is. The moment we've all been waiting for. Katie.
Yes.
What would you say is the most significant takeaway for you? That, if you're 99 years old, let's say you're like Rose in the Titanic. Remember her on the boat? Right. Telling your story. What do you think will still be the thing in the palm of your hand when you hand it off to someone else 50 years from now, from this experience?
From this experience, I think that I do have a little bit of wisdom that I'm not a wise person, but I do think I have learned a little bit in my life. And the little wisdom that I would impart is that there are many ways to get sober. This is one of them. AA is one of them. AA works fantastically for a lot of people. It has saved a lot of lives.
Yes, it has.
There are many different protocols and treatments that work for people. And I think the problem is that for people of my generation, probably for people of your generation as well, yes, we've been given the message that there's one way out of addiction, and that way is rehab, AA, and never drinking again. And that's not true. And I think that the fact that people think that has kept a lot of people stuck. It's kept a lot of people drinking much longer than they should, because they think that the only path out of this is to quit entirely, and they just can't do it.
I just am so excited. And thank you so much for providing people all over this world with this book that gives them choice. Another choice, another option, another opportunity. Because when you have choice, it leads to opportunity. And opportunity, should you take it? That's why they're called windows and doors. When you can see in, You go next door, it's a couple feet over, take the knob and go in. And this book is an opportunity. There it is. The window is right on the screen. All you have to do now is click on the link you see scrolling along the bottom of your screen, and it will suffice as the door of opportunity. Now, listen, you can look through the window all you want to, and it really won't change anything that's outside with you. But go in and watch what happens. You're looking at proof on the screen. Katie, thank you so much. I want to know you. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm serious. I just think you're so smart.
Well, thank you.
And you're really smart. And I'm going to just say, you got this thing where you're trustworthy. And that's going to help. Yeah. Oh, she said it like she's in. Well, there you go.
I gotcha.
Yes. Let that seed grow. You guys, please, don't just think about yourself. Think about the people, first of all, in your front row seats, your neighbors, the people in your church or your temple, your community. This is all about doing right. Doing right. We don't have to ask anyone what's right. Just do it. It may not be expedient. It may not be financially rewarding at first. But guess what? It will satisfy your soul, and it'll give your world protections that bodyguards couldn't provide. So this book is a great one to get out to young people going to college that are already there, retirees, anyone, because they probably know someone who can benefit from it. It's a great stocking stuffer. It's not too early to shop. So everything has been dropped also for convenience sake, you guys, inside of your comment section for easy access. So don't worry if you missed the links here. They're in there. Just click on it, bookmark it, and put it somewhere safe. You want to keep the things that change lives within reach. Katie, you're amazing. Amazing Katie. That's her name now. I want to thank you so much for gracing our stage today and pouring into us. 325 of you are still here just from YouTube alone. So I know that this has really served the world well today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I want to say to all of you out there, thank you so much. Yes, you're welcome back anytime.
Great.
No, seriously, anything you want to talk about, get at me. You are welcome back.
I'll be back
anytime. Okay?
I'll be back.
Thank you. Oh, you heard her. Listen, you guys, get out of here. Have your greatest day ever. Take great to greater, bright to brighter, strong to stronger, and my most favorite of all, kind to kinder. Now listen, I tell you every day, don't let my screen door slam on the way out, number one. And number two, Dr. Lauren absolutely loves you, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. So there it is. I'll see you all tomorrow, God willing, right on the front porch for another illuminated conversation right here on Bathrobe Moments. Katie Herzog, wonderful, wonderful one. I'm going to get the book. I'm going to go and get it right now.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys have the best day ever. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye, Katie.
Bye.
Show me your soul.